be going down that there's. All right. Welcome to another edition of Drumchathang. This week, I have my good friend Chris Hornbrook of Poison the Well on. I also do some tech work from him from time to time, so this should be a good one. I'm just going to wait for him to get into the room here, and we'll get into it. Last time I saw him was during the NAMM show. I helped him do some tech work for his show at the El Rey Theater in Los Angeles, and that was a good time. It was the 20th anniversary of one of the Poison the Well records. That's pretty fun. Anyways, just waiting for it to pick up here. Again, coming from Calgary, Alberta, or affectionately known as Berta. Maybe not so affectionately known as Berta. A lot of people call it from that for some reason. I'm not fully sure. Anyways, just waiting for Chris to hop on here. I don't know, I'm definitely live. There he is. I'll bring him on. A little wavy wave.
Yo,
Man.
what's going on, dude?
Oh, down here in the drum dungeon. Yeah. What about you? What's going on? You're in your living room, clearly.
Yeah, I'm hanging out here. It's a boring day today.
Yeah. Seems like most days have turned into that.
I mean, trying to make the most of it and be really productive, but
Oh yeah, totally.
it's a bit. I'm trying to get this whole thing kind of set up. All right, am I in frame better?
That's a little better. Yeah.
I'm propping this up with a shoe, so my whole part of myself I can't really see. I can only kind of see from my ear down, which is. Anyways,
Very
that was
high
it.
tech.
Hey man, whatever works.
So what have you been up to?
I try to keep productive, man. Like as much as I can. There really obviously things with touring have came to an absolute halt. So anything that would have came my way or things that I had planned down the road are just done pretty much. Yeah, just being productive here, man. That's really like not just in a drumming sense, but like in a life sense, like painting and investing money in the cryptocurrency and then playing a lot of drums and doing drum lessons and just bouncing around as much as I can and just trying to keep shit fucking. I mean, the position that I'm in financially right now, I'm fine. Like I'll figure it out. I'm not too worried. And some stuff planned in the fall for recording, but nothing that's in stone. So.
Right. Is that like a Poison the Well or a different project or?
Two things, but nothing I can talk about yet because they're not firmed up. So if they're not, if they're not firmed up, I obviously don't want to like jinx it.
Yeah, totally. You don't want to let the cat out of the bag or wreck the bag.
Totally, yeah. There's etiquette. You don't talk about certain things until they are fully formed. So, it's tentative plans. But until then, I'm just going to kind of continue doing what I'm doing, just being as productive as I can in the current situations with the current limitations in front of me.
Right. I did hear a track you played on though recently. Tell us about it.
Yeah, man. So my buddy Greg Pachado, formerly of the Dillinger Escape Plan, currently of Killer Be Killed, Black Queen, and working with Jared Cantrell from Alice in Chains. Nice. Released the second single for his solo record, I think about like a week ago. like with like a single, like a 12-inch single, limited release. And the song that he released was one of the songs that I played on called Deep Set, and it's cool. Yeah, I mean, we tracked all those drums back in September. I played on about 9 songs on the record. There's 15 in total, and yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's really, really cool. It's a super simple song, but it's really fun, and it kind of has that 90s vibe, which I'm a 90s kid, so you know, it was a very fun, easy, natural thing to play drums on. So it's cool. I'm very happy, and he's really happy, and I know he's really stoked on the song, and so pretty cool. It's just cool, man.
The last time we talked, we were talking about how the goal is to have a unique kind of identifiable sound.
Yeah.
And I talked to you about this already.
Yeah.
And I definitely, in that song, there's moments when you're playing that it's definitely clear to me, but I think I know you're playing on a different level than maybe some other people might. Mm-hmm. But I definitely had to see some clear lines that it's definitely identifiable to be you playing, which is cool. That's a big thing. I
think that's the most important thing, man. Personally, that's personally my point of view. It's on top of having good timing and having a good pocket, and, knowing where to put what. It's having an identity. So when you hear somebody play, it's them. It's probably the most crucial thing. In my opinion, you know what I mean? In my opinion, I mean, a lot of people might not think the same thing. I know there's a whole community out there that's very chops based, which I respect for the time and the energy and the creative energy put into it. But if you ask me, man, like, you go through Instagram and you you click through videos, everybody sounds exactly the same. There's really not like a huge identifiable, because they're focused on the technical aspect, and I feel like a lot of the thing that makes you identifiable as a drummer comes from like the way you approach things musically, your pocket, how you hit, like when you hit the drum, how does the drum sound when you hit it? These things, you know what I mean? And when you have a whole community of younger drummers, or I don't even say younger drummers, but just drummers that they just focus on that. Like I said, I'm not dissing it, because I totally think that learning that stuff is important to be able to use it when you need it. But you're not focusing on the thing that's gonna like make your musical like fingerprint. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So
I think I don't think there's that many. I mean, when you think of like the classic guys, like like the John Bonhams and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, those guys are all very clearly identifiable.
Yeah.
In their play. And I think getting lost in the chops again. I'm not ripping on it either, but at the same time, I don't understand it, because I don't understand the.
It's a skill set at this point that brings. Right. I've thought about this a little bit. It's a skill set at this point that when you post a video on a YouTube, or you post it on like Instagram or whatever, it's the thing that gets you the most attention. So it's the end objective isn't being musical or applying something to a song. It's how many likes can I get on this?
Right.
If you notice too, like the chops are usually coupled, not always, but usually coupled with a popular song. So all it is it's less about music and it's more about narcissism. Really what it boils down to. So the objectives, it's a skill set that's crafted to bring in the most amount of tension, the most amount of likes, the most amount of views. And I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, to a certain degree, I'm guilty of it. I think that we're all guilty of it, But it's also recognizing, being less short-sighted, of seeing like, okay, well, yeah, these things are cool and views are cool and having people appreciate what you do is cool. But obviously being more of a well-rounded drummer, having a sonic identity, developing groove, developing your, like, when you hit a drum, it sounds a certain way, or that only you can do. These are things that take more time, more energy, and more nuance. And we definitely live in the too long didn't read generation. So because of that, it's like, what's the quickest thing that's going to get me the most attention and the most, the things that are connected to attention. And I have a feeling that it has more to do with that than anything else. Because obviously there are fucking rad-ass drummers out there that are very popular on YouTube. More so, I just say more Instagram, but obviously you can go on YouTube and find content that they have it as well. But they're really fucking awesome players that have what I'm talking about, and they're very popular. But I feel like since it's not the most popular thing now, it's a very small amount of guys like Nate Smith, like Aaron Sterling, Carter McLean, I think. Obviously, these aren't guys that are just shredding all the time. They're more pocket-based, and you hear them play, and you're like, oh, that sounds like that, because it takes energy, it takes time. It's not like a paint by numbers thing, So that's just my point of view. I could be completely off base on it, but I've thought about this quite in depth, and that's the conclusion I came to. Because if you look at it, just like it's usually coupled with a popular song, coupled with a particular way of playing chopsy type stuff that is pretty ubiquitous right now. And the drums are tuned the same usually. It's a really high pitched snare drum, and the dude or the girl's going ape shit. Well, it's always something like that. There's always a few kind of there's a few key components always in shit like that. So, like I said, I'm not dissing it. If that's your objective, that's cool. It's just like I'm on the opposite end where like I feel like less is more in a lot of cases. And if you hit a snare drum and the way you hit it, nobody else can hit it that way and make it sound that way. Or much like we're talking about going back to the original thing of pocket, you listen to somebody and you're like, that's that person. Like, I don't want to say you've hit the apex, but you've hit a few things that are really fucking difficult that take years. Like, I've been playing drums for like 25, 26 years. There's obviously people that'll shit on me out there with chops, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. But I do think in certain cases that when it comes to songs and pocket and like heavy hitting stuff, that most of those people would have they would struggle with in a studio setting with me. If I play on one song and they play on another song, there'd be a very stark contrast between it. And a producer would have to be like, hey, slow down. Hey, less chops. We're going to have to tune that snare drum. There's just too high. Or, like certain things that they just don't really realize, because it's just like chops and then this 16-bar thing or this 8-bar thing or whatever,
Yeah. It is a different thinking for sure. Flash. There used to be a term for that, which was flash bastard.
I've never heard that term before.
That's what they used to call people that were like over the top, like a look at me kind of idea.
Yeah.
Flash bastards.
Interesting. This sounds very Canadian to me.
Yeah, probably, you hoser.
But yeah, man, like I said, at the end of the day, that shit I don't really get too frustrated over it because it doesn't affect me. We're not competing for the same space, you know what I mean? Like, I'm very concerned with the things that we just spoke about and playing with and creating with people, working with people that I like what they're doing and they want to have me involved. Like, I respect Greg a lot. He's a friend of mine. We've known each other for a very long time. He was the lead singer of what's considered one of the, pioneering technical heavy bands. And, I'm obviously helping him explore a different musical space because most of the stuff that I play on was either heavy and or 90s. There's a little bit of kind of going, like there's a bit of that going on. So like it's cool to help him explore that space of like where that's going, you know what I mean? Like Bill just keep playing, like respect it. It's not musically my thing. Obviously like Billy does a great job at that, and he's also one of those guys that like his personality fits that. Like I have zero desire to play something that has a bunch of meter changes and a bunch of time shifting that's 200 BPMs plus. Like that's not me, you know what I mean? So
Totally.
I'm spaced.
What a drummer that guy was, Chris Penny. He's pretty good.
Yeah, Chris is pretty gnarly, man. He wrote the blueprint for all that shit. Like a lot of shit that drummers are doing now, that dude was doing late 90s.
Exactly.
Yeah, A funny story too, on Greg's record, the first single that was released, Chris played drums on, and then there's a bunch of songs on the record. I don't know if some of the songs that I were involved with, but there are quite a few that he did additional programming, because there's definitely going to be like an electronic element to the record. Like there's one song that I played on that's pretty much like synthesizers and vocals, and it comes in with like really big, heavy drums. I don't know what Chris has done yet, because I haven't heard all the final mixes, but he's going to be coming in with additional programming and sound manipulation and kind of adding, layers and elements. So, but yeah, Chris is a monster, man. It's shit that he could do, people are doing now. You know, so it's he's a beast of a musician, a beast of a drummer, and just way ahead of his time.
Totally. What else is going on?
Dude,
any new gear acquisitions?
No, man. I've kind of taken the opposite road of, I have a lot of drums right now, a lot of snare drums. I only have one drum kit, which I'm totally content with. I'm actually trying to narrow down my snare collection to anywhere between 4 to 8 gem snares. Like, what's the point? Because right now, like, I have like a rack over here. What's the point in owning like 20? I think I own like 23 snare drums right now. If I'm only going to show up to a session and say bring 4 or 5, what's the point of the other 19? Or 18, whatever, you know. What's the point, right?
True. Yeah.
So my attitude right now is I want to thin a lot of the stuff out, and I want to kind of get the pieces that I need that communicate how I play the best. This is really what it is. And I've kind of flipped my thinking. And everybody may have used to think this way, but I've recently, and this might be like so obvious, but it just wasn't really obvious for me, that it's less about the snare drum and it's more about you. So in the past, it's always been like, oh, we're going to get the Tama Bell Brass, as if the Tama Bell Brass is just a vehicle for sound. But when you hit it, that sound is crappy or mediocre, then what's the point in like renting it or borrowing it or buying it? If it's not like, if you don't know how to hit, you don't know how to make it sing, right? Yeah. So it's the extension. So the way I'm looking at it is like snare drums and cymbals as well, and not so much kicks and toms. I feel like they generally, you know, since there's more articulation on the snare drum, I'm a little bit more inclined for that, and that's the centerpiece of any, you know, when you're mixing a record, the centerpiece is the snare in terms of like the percussiveness. You know, it's a kick and snare, and then everything else is sort of built around it. But the way I'm looking at things right now, I used to look at things backwards, like, oh, I'm getting this, so because I have this, it'll sound better. And like, I've always been able to hit a snare drum really well. I think I've gotten better throughout the years, but my mind has shifted from what snares do I want to keep that are going to communicate my sound the best, my identity as a drummer. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. I don't know if you've thought about things this way, or like every drummer thinks about those things. Has thought about this in that way, and I'm just late to the fucking party, like 26 years later, which is totally possible. But I've just kind of like completely just thought about it like that. Like I recently, like on the session with Greg's record, we borrowed Josh Wilburn, the producer. We borrowed his brand new Gretsch Bell Brass, and it sounded fucking amazing. I mean, it beat every other drum in the room that we were in. It beat everything. So in my mind, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's something I should pick. I should buy one of those Gretsch Bell Brasses, you know? I think they run around $1,000. Because in that musical situation, when it came to heavy guitars and heavy, noisy instrumentation, like, that communicated my sound really, really great. And it melded in with my kit really great. So maybe I should add that to my collection. Whereas right now, I'm like looking at my rack, like, perfect example, I own this spun, I think it's like 1.7 mil, you know, like the beaded copper snare drum that Yamaha makes, and it's an awesome snare drum. No, it's a 14 by 6.5. Awesome snare drum. When I brought it to my studio, I put some die-cast tubes on it. I hit it. I was underwhelmed. And I have two other copper snare drums that sound amazing. I have my Q 14 by 7 Gentleman's, and then I have another Yamaha 14 by 5.5, like a Novu lug or whatever. Both of those I would pick over that Yamaha spun snare drum. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, why should I hold on to this? Of like maybe just holding on to it because when it becomes super because it's from the 90s, when it becomes super vintagey, maybe it'll be an investment for money that, I think I paid like $500 for it a few years ago. Maybe it'll go up to like the $600 or $700 range, so I'll make a little money on it. But with that being said, it's like, what's the point of even owning it? Say if I go down the road of wanting to sell it, why? I have two other drums that do such a better job that communicate my sound, what I want, so much better. What's the point? You know what I mean?
Okay, so what's the top three then? That you're kind of gravitating. Let's choose three for now. So what are the top three do you think are, in your opinion, the ones that would be like a defining snare drum for you?
Well, the ones that I currently own or like future acquisitions?
We'll start with currently owned.
Okay, so currently owned, my Journaling's copper. I've used that on a bunch of things. I've used it on TV stuff, and I've used it on a few records and like soundtracky stuff, and it always wins. It always sounds it's just the tone, and it's just a fucking fantastic snare drum. That would be one. The second would probably be trying to think of different materials. I do have an AYOT Keplinger stainless 6.5 by 14 that I haven't used in a really long time, but it sounds awesome.
With metal hoops or wood hoops?
Wood hoops.
Wood hoops,
Wood
nice.
hoops. I don't know if I'd break that one out. It's like one of those things that I feel like it's very specific. Like if somebody played me a song, I'd be like, oh, that would go for that. I'm trying to think of like well-rounded drums. I'd probably have to say like my Q drum spun bronze. It's like a one-of-a-kind bronze snare drum. I brought it into that session, the Greg session, and it didn't make the cut, but I think it didn't make the cut because it had triple flange tubes and it didn't have die cast.
You have the power.
Yeah, I recently bought some Pearl Mastercast hoops and put them on, and I feel like the thing that was lacking in the studio, those hoops gave it, because it's like a 3 mil or it's like a 3.5 millimeter bronze drum. Obviously Q drum makes great shit, so it's their edge, their snare beds, their craftsmanship. I like to bring that back in and A/B that against like a belt brass snare drum. It can be different because bronze obviously is a little bit different than brass.
Yeah.
I'd say that drum. Yeah, I'd say that drum, and then if I need like a wood alternative, I have a Brady stave drum. It's like 14 by 8, and it's like Jara and she oak, like staves, like one's one, and just kind of. I've used that on a bunch of different records, and it sounds fucking great. The only thing it sucks is it has a very narrow snare bed, so I can't fit like those really big snare wires. But I could technically take it to Q drummer to another builder and have them re-edge it, rebed it, and it probably would correct that. So those are the three different variations of material. We got exotic stave wood, we have a copper drum, and then we have a bronze drum. I think those would work really well.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The Brady drum, that's probably going to be worth something because that company's no longer, aren't they gone?
No, I own three. I own three Brady. Yeah, I own three. That's the one that I would never sell because I bought that the first time I went to Australia in 2003 or 4. I think it was 4. It was for Big Day Out 2004. And I met the people with Brady there, and I bought it. It wasn't a lot. It's like $700 because clearly this is a really long time ago. And Yeah, it's just it's sentimental and it sounds great. I've used it on a bunch of Poison the Well records, and if there's something wood related that I didn't have heavy guitars and needed that softness of the soft sound of wood, I'd bring that. That would be like the first thing I'd bring in. The other two Brady's aren't bad, like the material's really good, but for some reason they don't cut. I think that the edges on them might be me. One's a Jara and then one's a Wandu, and it's same thing, very narrow snare beds. So what I think I might do is I might just take the Jara, like a 14 by 6.5. I might just take it to Q Drum when they're not busy and say, hey, would you guys mind re-edging this and rebedding it for me? Because it doesn't sound as good as it should. It's one of those things where I hit it and it sounds like muffled, and not muffled like how you would think muffled, but like it feels like some of the top end drops off, and there's nothing wrong with the material. Like the drum itself it's the craftsmanship is excellent. So the only thing that it would make me think is edges and beds.
Yeah, probably. Sounds like it. Especially if it's not at a round. If it's at a round, that might.
Oh, it's perfect, dude. It's perfectly fucking. It's great. I bought them with insurance money from 10 years ago as like investments. I didn't realize Brady was going to go out of business, but then once they did go out of business, I was like, cool. Like I think I purchased the drums at like an endorser rate. Like they're like $800, but they resell right now for $12, and over time they could go up. And especially too, it's like if the drum sounds phenomenal, like who would want to buy? My view is like who would want to buy a drum that doesn't sound that great, that has the potential to sound great. So my mind would be like, all right, let me experiment with like the Jara, have it re-edged, and see if that does anything.
Oh yeah, totally. I bet it will.
I think so too, man. It's really strange. Yeah, it's really strange because I hit it and it sounds subdued in some way. It sounds like there's just there's something not. It lacks that like explosive sort of openness.
Right. Okay, so top 3 that you do not own that you want to get. So obviously that Gretsch.
Yeah, Gretsch Bell Brass without question. That's going to be my next purchase. Even if I have to unload a few of my snares to get it, that's just an all around monster. Like if I wanted to use it live or if I wanted to use it in the studio, it just wins. Even after I did the session, I've perused Instagram and I came across an ad or like some sort of thing that Matt Storm did, and he had that same exact snare drum. And listening to it on my phone, it had a very specific sound. And I'm like, that's awesome. It's a great sound. That I would like to get a Q drum 14 by 7 Gentleman's Aluminum. That's the next chrome on chrome. So it's like it mirror more of like a superphonic like old school Ludwig. That would be a move. And then if I could get a hold of like a Tama Bell brass that didn't cost like $3,000 to $5,000, I would. But another funny thing is the session I did with Greg, I borrowed Alex from Suicide Silence. He has like an 80s Tama Bell brass with the brass hoops. I borrowed that for a song and we brought it in and we set it up. And there was definitely an A-B between the Gretsch and then the Tama, and very, very minor differences, but overall not even like for price point, without question the Gretsch. You just buy
like a copy of the Tama.
I'm sure. I mean, dude, people,
because that was the Tama Bell brass snare still is like top dog for a lot of that kind of stuff. So maybe they did copy it.
Yeah, there is a music store, I think in New Hampshire. I think it's called Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Drum Shop or something like that. If you go on YouTube, they have, it's like, I think it might be 8 to 10 metal snare drums. And one of the snare drums, and they do the specifics, right? They're like, this is an 80s Tama Bell brass, this is the weight, this is the specs on it, this is how, I'm pretty sure they do thickness.
Yeah.
A little unsure on thickness, but I think they might do like this is 3 millimeter, this is a 2.5, or don't quote me on that, but I could be wrong. But I know they do weight and depth and material, and it's like that one. It's the Gretsch, it's the Drum Tempesta signature snare, which is Tama drum too. There's like a Noble and Cooley. There's like a few of them. They all sound, you know what? To me, they all sound like different, slight different variations of the same thing. Like they're not too far. They're not too far off from one another. But it was like an early, Tama bell brass, and that it definitely smoked them all, but smoked them in context, right? So a big open fat Metallica Black album, that drum would work really well. It's just fat and it's just huge, like it's just full body, and it just sounds really great. But you go to the Tempesta, and you're like, that Tempesta sounds really fucking good too. And then you go to the Gretsch, like, the Gretsch sounds good too. The Gretsch one, the tone is really similar, but it sounds like the Gretsch is pitched a little higher, But yeah, in that particular context, I mean I would have gone with the Tama brass. But then again, if I had to take the Gretsch and I take the Tama and I tune them to the same notes, to the same tension, note, heads, snare wires in the same room, they might be closer than that video, is sort of showing you.
Yeah. It's hard buying into the video drum shop experience myself.
Well, no, they went out for this. Yeah, they went out for this. There was mic'd, and they had like room mics and the whole thing. One of them was an A&F, an A&F-er. I think it might be a bronze A&F-er.
Okay.
So, I mean, all the drums sounded, all right, they all sounded really good. The A&F-er the price point was a little up there. Their shit sounds fucking dope, man, but the price point for me just doesn't work.
Oh, the price point. You should see what it is up here.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, Canada.
Oh, in Canada, a 5-piece kit was sitting on the floor at the Lawn McQuaid here for, I think it was like $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like a fucking car.
Yeah, they sound, don't get me wrong, man, they look and they sound fucking fantastic.
Oh, yeah, they do. They do, for sure.
I just can't, I could never, unless I became like an A&F artist, I would never go out and say, oh, I'm going to buy an A&F-er. Because it's like, why would I do that when I could, like I said, I could go buy a Gretsch for the price I could pay for the A&F-er that I saw on there, which I think was like $2,500. I could buy a Gretsch bell brass. I could buy, Gretsch also sells like a bronze drum, which is like the round over edges. I think it's like 1.7 mil. You could buy one of those. I could probably buy, I can go online and probably buy a vintage, mid-70s Ludwig Superphonic, and then still have some money left over.
Yeah.
Roughly. Maybe not a lot, but a little bit left over. For 3 drums, first one. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. And once again, it comes back down to like, is that when you hit a drum, like your individual sonic identity, is that what you want to communicate? I'm not saying that it is or isn't. That's obviously each drummer. That's like their thing. But for me, it's I'm narrowing down my snare drum color sonic palette to, like I said, anywhere between 4 to 8 drums for certain situations, for certain things that I think that will work with how I play drums.
Totally. Yeah, it's an interesting way to do it. It's like, figuring out your identity is more than your gear, and that's a big.
Oh, dude.
That's a big game changer right there, man.
Yeah, you know what I've learned is that, like, when you have your own sonic identity, you have your own pocket, you have your own way to make drums sound really good. You can go on any drum set, and it will sound like you. And I feel like I said, back to the thing that we talked about before, I feel like that's the most important thing. Because, like, Bonham sits down, you know it's him. Alex Van Halen sits down, you know it's him. Even current, like, I'm trying to think, like, current guys. I'm a little out of music even like just say like in the heavy realm, like Ben Cola from Converge. He sits down, he plays any drums. It sounds exactly like him. Like I feel like I have that identity. Or like Chris Penny has, even though he's very technical, he has an identity when he hits the snare drum. Like, oh, that sounds like how that's the velocity and the technique that Chris would use. You know what I mean? Where it's like I feel like that's just kind of getting lost as time goes on, and it's really unfortunate because it's a really rewarding part of being a musician and being a drummer is that.
It's big.
Yeah, very, very big, man. Very, very big. So, I hope that at some point, a lot of these kids grow up and they because my whole thing is I started backwards as I know most drummers. Most drummers started with the whole technical thing first, and then as I got older, then they flipped and they started learning about like more pocket and like where to put stuff and how to serve the song and sonic identities and all that sort of stuff. And I learned it backwards. I learned of all that stuff in my like formative years as a player, and now like the past anywhere between 4 to 8 years, I've been focusing more on chops, and finding like the clusters of rudiments that work for me in my style, and like attempting to build them from the ground up. So that it's not like I said, it's not like a paint by numbers where it's like you go to a bunch of different Instagram accounts and you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before, or like not that they're playing the same exact notation, but it's like playing the 32nd or 64th notes and like phrase in threes. That seems and it, don't get me wrong, that shit's really fucking cool, but like how cool is it if it's like not cool, how it becomes less unique and less special if it becomes ubiquitous.
Exactly.
So
I got a friend of mine who was very his playing was really like obvious, like when he had this certain kind of fill pattern that he would do, and it was almost like a signature kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
And he went on to play in a couple of bigger Canadian bands.
Mm-hmm.
He was in I guess the biggest one that you maybe have heard of is Chaos. It was a rap band. They did the Warped Tour a couple of years near the end of it.
Yeah, not familiar with Chaos.
Yeah, but that drummer, like, he was the first person that it wasn't like a John Bonham or Steve Gadd or anything like that, where he played and it was recognizable to the point where I was having a conversation at a bar, busy, and he played, and I didn't even know he was in the building, and right away I was in the middle of a conversation, and there was something about his playing and that certain style of fill, where I was middle of conversation was like, holy crap, Ray, and the guy's name is Ray Garroway. He was a monster. I'll send you some of his stuff. It was
send me some shit. Yeah, man, that's just the most fucking important thing, man. The older I get, the more I realize that like spending tons of time, simply focusing on chops, it's just like, unless you're in a very technical, fusion band, jazz fusion band, like tech metal band, whatever, like, unless that's like an integral part of like what you do, it's a pure waste of time, because in no normal musical application is that stuff really going to come into play unless you have a little drum break where you can do a little solo or at an end of the song.
Yeah. Trash can endings that are gospel chopped.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I think I just get, after a while, I just seen so many videos. I think it's just a little bit of like the whole I'll like flick on a video and it's just some kid in his basement and he's just like, I'm like, all right, and I flip to another video and it's like the same thing, and it's just to me it's really important to be an individual as a player, and that's completely lacking in the world today. I feel. But then again, if you can really stand out and you can really be an individual, then I think that's people will recognize that. It's helped me get gigs. So
totally. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing. If you have your own style and your own thing, it's going to be what gets you hired, because they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
It's not the gospel chops or whatever. overplaying or underplaying. It's the fact that nobody else can play that passage like you can.
It's important, man. It's super, super important. And let's be honest, man. There's a few names that are going to be recognized with like the whole gospel chop thing, and and my hat's off to them. They're obviously immense talents, and some of them I listen to, and some of them I've never heard before. But I have zero desire to attempt to replicate something else somebody's done. Like I'm not saying what the way I play is this like crazy original thing or anything like that. But the idea is that like I'm not finishing my sort of drumming musical journey, and that when I reach a certain point, I will have done something that's like fucking hard as shit to do, but not obvious when you listen to it. Like I look at somebody like Stuart Copeland or like Matt Cameron, two perfect examples. Like the way Copeland played, it's just like, oh, he did really simple things, but it was so specific. It was so fucking him between like just everything that Stuart Copeland was, and still probably is. You know what I mean? It's like he reached the thing that like most drummers should, I feel like, should aspire to. Like instantly, you hear Stuart Copeland play, you hear him hit a snare drum. Like it's a mixture of like energy and like rawness mixed with like a bit of musically technical stuff. Like it's just this whole like it's a complete circle to me when I listen to someone like Stuart Copeland. It's like, this guy's so good. Like all the shit he's doing in these pops, with the Police. It's just like this shit's fucking so awesome. Like
Absolutely.
Go towards that, but like do your own thing, which is difficult because it just takes years and years and years and years, and you have to like have this unwavering thing that like I can do it. I don't know what the end goal is gonna be, and I don't know. I know I'll get there. I don't know what it'll look like, but I have this just like unwavering belief in myself that I'll be able to fucking do it at some point.
I think a good example of somebody who's on that path is Alan Rubin.
Yeah. Yeah, man. To be honest, I don't follow a lot of what he does. Like I've seen him play with Nine Inch Nails a bunch of times, and it's always amazing. But I haven't heard what he's done necessarily, like and musical, because I know he's played with like Paramore and Angels and Airwaves. I don't listen to that. That's just not on my radar. I just don't really listen to that sort of stuff. So obviously I don't have the ability at this point to really fully have an educated opinion, because I've heard him play with Nine Inch Nails, which stuff is either programmed, Dave Grohl, Chris Frenna, Jerome Dillon, that sort of thing, where it's like I'm not hearing like what he's doing. I'm hearing him replicate something else that's been done, and he's doing it to a very high degree and a high standard, which I absolutely tip my hat to. I just don't know enough of like him communicating that thing, because I just haven't heard what he's done. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I've just like there's a couple of Modern Drummer Festival videos that I don't kind of catch. I know exactly what you mean about replicating, and when is it actually him or is it what he's being told to do? But in the Modern Drummer, there's a Modern Drummer Festival one that he played on a while ago. Again, I'll find the link. Post it. In particular on that one, that's more what I'm talking about. Like it has a definite nod to people that definitely influenced them, and then the experiences of doing the Nine Inch Nails stuff are there, but it's definitely him.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. In particular, that particular performance.
Okay.
Not Paramore or.
Yeah, I'm sure it rips. There's things that I've seen him do. Like if there's like a Guitar Center solo that I saw him perform, like it was like years and years ago. You can't deny his talent. It's completely evident with his ability to sing, play guitar, play bass, play drums at very, very high levels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just he's prodigy. There's just no way around it. You know what I mean? And that's not to diminish hard work or intellect or time or any of that stuff. He's really, really great at what he does. And like I see a huge Bonham influence, which is, hey man, if you're gonna have an influence of somebody, obviously, for rock and roll, John Bonham's great. And yeah, I mean, Alon as a musician he's phenomenal. He absolutely has my respect.
Really? Right out. I don't know. What else you want to talk about?
Fuck, man.
You want to talk about tacos? You had any good tacos lately? I haven't had any good tacos because I'm in Canada, and they don't really have good tacos here worth of shit.
Zero fucking tacos in Canada that are worth a shit. I can't say that I have. I've had really good tacos recently, just for the simple fact that all places that serve tacos are closed for the most part. Like,
I guess.
you know, like most places are doing takeout, and in my particular area, there are good taco spots, but there's a few that are up in Los Angeles that I go to, and I haven't been in LA for a while because everything's closed and nothing's happening. There's this really, really great spot in Echo Park called Guisados, but I haven't been. I'm sure they're doing takeout. I just haven't been able to go to it to have tacos. But they have like the best chicken mole tacos. Insane. Best mole sauce I've ever had.
That sounds amazing.
There
are some good taco shops here, but not many.
Well, it's not. It's
authentic as much as like, you know.
Yeah, it's a hard. It's a really difficult thing in Canada, unless you have like Mexican immigrants that have came in and they just have amazing recipes for tortillas and chicken and blah 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 blah, and they just open up a spot and that spot grows. And I mean, I had this. There was a Mexican spot I had in Toronto. Forget what it's called. It's like a late night spot. Noticed people would go there like after clubs and after shows. I'm sure somebody will, somebody watching this at some point will be like, oh, it's blah blah blah. And I went there and had food, and it was like, it tasted Canadian. It didn't. There was zero Mexican deliciousness going on, like spice wise. It was like, this is guacamole, and I'm like, wow, this is okay. And then there's like the tortillas for tacos were obviously flour, which is like a no. They have to be corn. Corn is a must. It was like simple things that like, unless you have eaten really good Mexican food, you're just not gonna know.
Yeah, exactly. Corn is a must for sure.
Yeah, corn for tortillas and corn for enchiladas is a must.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Obviously you don't have corn tortilla burritos. That'd be really weird. That'd be a lot of. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't think that'd be very good.
Yeah, it'd be too much.
Way too much. Way too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Like I wish I could say things were really fucking exciting and all this crazy shit was happening that in my world. But for the most part, I've just been at home. I've been eating a lot at home. Obviously staying at home because there's nowhere really to go considering what's going on in the world right now. So like I literally go between here and like the grocery store, or like here and my studio. Yeah, that's I can't go out and can't fucking do anything. I mean, I'm communicating with friends. I'm in text threads. I'm obviously on social media and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, man. I wish I could say that.
Practicing that, right? Like,
yeah.
How much practice are you putting in?
I'm gonna play in a few days a week, and there's a few things that I'm working on, but like I have a hard time just playing to nothing. I have to be like, oh, I'm working on a song, or I'm working on an idea, or it's like some sort of concept of sorts, or it's like dialing in. It's just dialing in like ideas, but in my mind, I approach shit. Me musically, I approach shit as like chunks of stuff. Whereas, like, I know, like, most drummers, they, like, jam stuff. I've gotten kind of better about that, but I approach things as parts. Like, I'll come up with something, I'm like, that'd be a really good chorus. Or, like, that would be a really good verse. Or, like, that'd be a really good intro feel. Or, like, I compartmentalize these things, and I come up with them. And it's really good for, like, doing songs, because somebody will give me an idea, and I'll just be like, oh, I could just kind of slip that in there, and might alter some stuff, but I could piece it together. It's like putting like Legos together in my brain with that sort of stuff. I should probably work on jamming a little bit better. like that, what I just described, how I approach stuff, is a pretty useful skill. But with that being said, being able to just sit down and fucking jam is really good too. And that's always been a weakness in me because I'm a cerebral guy. I like thinking about stuff, and I'll overthink shit. So, you know.
Right. So, I know the band's like all over the place as far as Poison the Well, but have you guys like talked at all, rehearsed at all, or anything?
Yeah, we talk. We have business we're trying to conduct right now and sorting some stuff out with like monies that are owed to us. That I won't go into great detail, but all that shit's fine. We obviously had Psycho Vegas, which is being postponed until 2021. So
it is, eh?
Yeah, we had to talk about that, and we had some things that in the works that obviously had to get postponed as well. Nothing that's announced, and nothing that obviously I'm at liberty to speak about, but hopefully things that will come to fruition in 2021. So,
right.
We talk, and we're talking. There's a lot of things, whether it's shows or business or what have you, that we go through as a band. But I mean, touring, everything is at a fucking absolute standstill. So
absolutely.
What do you do? You know what I mean? Like we had a third and fourth quarter of 2020 kind of planned out that this will be really fucking cool. And we'll do this and we'll do that. And this is killer. And it just as soon as COVID hit, it was just like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's bummer, man. Yeah, we're all feeling it. We're all feeling it. I'm fortunate enough the governments, both Canadian government and U.S. government, are coming through to certain degrees, depending upon what your lifestyle is like. I live a very frugal lifestyle. So for me, I can make whatever work. I'm also a survivor. I always figure out whatever I need to figure out, so I know I'll be fine. But with that being said, it's just really fucking weird right now.
Yeah, they started doing the airline job that I have is parked. So I ended up picking up like a Joe job delivery thing for a grocery store here. So that's been interesting. Never done anything like that before, but you know what? It's kind of rewarding.
There's zero shame in doing whatever you need to do to pay your bills and survive if whatever you do for a living is impacted by a recession, a depression, a pandemic, a natural disaster. Like, whatever you got to do, man. Whatever you got to do to pay the bills, put food on your table. If you have a family, take care of your family. Zero shame in that, man. Zero shame. Because you could be riding fucking high on the horse, and it just so happened your industry is just gets shit on for whatever reason. And you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's been all right. I've been playing lots of music too. Like I've been getting a lot of people to send tracks and whatnot. So I've done like 9 songs in the last couple weeks, like 3 weeks.
That's awesome.
9 tracks for people, and Bad Habits, my punk rock band, has started writing. So we got 1 song, pretty much done. It's good. Like I don't know. It seems to have forced people to be creative, and I think that is not a bad thing. You know?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, what is it? Adversity pops up, and people find a way to adapt. Essentially, Exactly. What is it? The necessity is the mother of invention, or whatever that saying is. I mean, if you are stuck in your home, you are going to find a way to get whatever you need to get done, whether it's creativity or paying the bills, or if you're a girl, attention. the level of within my feed of just girls just like posting like endless videos of them just talking about nothing. It's just it's the pandemic has upped that.
I don't have that problem. I ditched all that shit.
Hey, man.
Anybody that's not doing something that I think is, quality, that I'm just like, I don't have time to waste my time.
Oh, these are just friends. It's friends. It's friends that are girls that just have too much time and zero exposure to the world. So,
Yeah.
It's just that.
Although they are interesting to watch because it's so out there, like kind of blindsiding.
Yeah.
Funny. Well, we're running into the almost an hour here, Mark.
Cool.
So we should probably wrap her up.
Mm-hmm.
Any wise words for everybody? What do you got for wise words this time?
I don't know. Think for yourself.
Think for
That's the big thing about this entire pandemic. It's like the level of like people not thinking for themselves. I see people driving around with like masks on in their cars, and I'm like, that's to like you have it. That's to stop you from giving it to someone else. So if you're in a car by yourself, you probably don't need to wear the mask.
My favorite is when the mask goes to here, and then their nose is like wide open.
Haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
I will say though that like it is pretty disconcerting of what this whole thing has kind of done. What I noticed, I went to the grocery store this morning, and what it's placing. Obviously, we need to do this to slow down, but it's placing boundaries between people, and you could tell it's there, and it's not good. Like obviously it's good in the sense that it helps slow down whatever the hell's going on, but it's not good because it's like your fellow man, your fellow woman, you need to be able to like interact with them in some capacity. And when you have
I think that's going to change. I think people are going to react to each other a little different now. I think that boat is definitely changing.
Yeah, the boat has definitely sailed on that. But the thing for me, it's just kind of like I'm not one to live my life in fear. So yeah, if I have to go into a store, I'll wear a mask. Or if somebody's wants me to place 6 feet between them for their own personal. Okay, I'm totally fine with respecting somebody else's feelings on it. But for me, I look at it like, okay, well, if I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna die, and that's in a very extreme case, a very extreme way of looking at things. I'd much rather die on my feet than on my knees. I'd rather live my life and go out there and experience life than stay in my home and essentially be afraid of what's out and like what other people have. You know what I mean?
Totally. Same boat, man. I agree fully.
Yeah, it's like it's like, dealing with some people, it's just like, it's okay, you could shake my hand, it's fine. I've been in my house for a few months. I've seen maybe a handful of people. Like, clearly, I'm not sick.
Yeah.
Like we'll be fine. But it's. I just feel like society is telling people to do that, and that's fine to a certain degree. But we're obviously getting to a point right now where new things are coming out, and we're obviously slowly starting to get over this, and some are starting to kick in. And it's not. I'm not saying necessarily good to go back to the way things were before, because obviously we don't have a vaccine for this thing, so we do have to be responsible. I'm just a little disappointed that it's such an extreme. How things were dealt with in this capacity was so extreme. And the entire time of me looking at it, obviously I didn't take it lightly, and I've been responsible. But at the same time, it's like something really hasn't seemed right. Everybody's talking about this as like the bubonic plague. Clearly, it's not the bubonic plague. You know what I mean? Like, clearly, So, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't get too deep into that, but ultimately, I want to live my life, and I'll be respectful of other people and what boundaries they want for whatever reason. But I'm not gonna live my life on my knees. It's just not how I am.
Hey. Stand tall, brother.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Well, let's do this again soon.
Yeah, soon. Okay. Stay safe. Okay.
Later.
Bye.